舒服。
Taiwan is home to so many beautiful rivers and canyons, and since my 10-year anniversary is coming up, I decided to take a trip down memory lane and revisit all of the really wonderful places that I did on my many road trips around the island. And when I started to film that, what I realized is so many of these places which I visited before and have really fond memories of are actually closed. Not closed in any temporary sense, but permanently banned by law. But even now, if you just step foot in those areas, you can be fined up to 50,000 NT, which is more than a month's salary for 2/3 of the population. And it's not because these are top secret military areas or super sensitive ecological areas with endangered species, or even very holy places that you defile just from your presence. No, all of these places are banned ostensibly for your safety. But as we'll learn, when these places were banned, your safety was never even really thoughtfully considered. So first, let's roll the tape. So my first road trip with John, we went to a place called 萬年峽谷. It's super famous, everybody's heard of it, and it is just amazing. It's like a very narrow canyon that's only about 6 meters deep, and there's a river running through it. It's really fantastic. You can jump off the edge of some places that are deep enough. Most of it's really just a shallow river going through it, and there's like some water slides and stuff. And it goes on quite far. It's just really an amazing place. We're so excited to be there, but it is banned. All water recreational activities are banned, meaning you can't swim here and you can't river trace here. Otherwise, it would be full of tours here that would start at the giant waterfall upstream, and people would rappel down and then come out through this canyon. It would be a wonderful tour, but you can't do it. It's banned. And the reason it's banned is because the lip of the canyon is very slippery, and on many occasions people have kind of walked up to the edge and accidentally slipped in, fallen into the canyon and drowned.
古坑的万年峡谷，游客前来赏风景，惊吓发现2具浮尸，赶紧报警。警消人员获报，前往打捞上岸，发现2名死者，一男一女。
And while the local government strongly suggests that you don't go up to the edge and look in, that part's not actually prohibited under Article 36, which only concerns water sports. So the activity which led to these accidents is not actually swimming, but walking, which is not penalized under these laws. And you also have to wonder, when you look at the footage of these accidents, if somebody had fallen in and this place is full of swimmers, couldn't somebody have just flipped the body over so that their face wasn't in the water and they didn't drown, or just toss them a flotation device? So the ban in this area is not preventing accidents, and the accidents that did occur would not have been illegal under the ban, and had the people survived, they wouldn't have been penalized. So it's just not really making a lot of sense. And this is very typical for Act for Tourism Development Article 36, where an incident will happen and they'll suddenly ban a place without ever really doing a serious risk assessment of the area and really figuring out why these accidents occurred. They just see drowning and then they ban the area. And maybe nowhere is this demonstrated more than on the神秘海滩in Ilan, where actually they closed an entire 22 kilometers of beach because there was a four-wheeling accident during a typhoon, where in the storm swell, people who were on the beach driving vehicles were swept over by a wave, and they ended up in the water and they drowned. After that incident, they did implement some rather useful regulation for renting beach buggies. Like, you're not allowed to do it when there's a typhoon nearby, which should have been very obvious, and of course was obvious to everybody who does water sport. It's kind of insanity that they were rented to them in the first place. But what the law didn't address, which is completely nonsense, is that nobody was actually engaged in any water activities that day. So none of the incidents or drownings were actually even remotely related to water sports in any way, yet they banned water sports for, not even just a small area, but 22 kilometers of beach. So you couldn't swim in that beach. You couldn't use like a SUP or kayak at that beach. You couldn't surf at that beach all year, anytime, regardless of the sea conditions. And that ban lasted for 2 years, and it was eventually taken down because of people protesting how stupid it was, but it's kind of indicative of how the Act for Tourism Development, Article 36, is applied all over the country. And as far as I know, that's the only place that's ever been lifted. Any other place where they put in Article 36, it just stays there. Some places it's been there for 20 years or something like that. Oops, I need to make a correction to that. The ban was only partially lifted. Article 36 remains in place on this beach. Swimming and surfing are banned all year, no exceptions. The only concession was that kayaking and SUP are allowed from May to September. So, just to recap, due to an accident involving motor vehicles and a typhoon, swimming has been totally banned all year, and kayaking is only allowed during typhoon season. This is why I think Articles 36 and 60 are beyond saving and need to be repealed. Despite being fined 60,000 NT during the protests, Li Yuanze and the Taiwan Open Water Society are still fighting to open this beach completely. I'll put a link to the organization in the video description. Another place I want to point out is嶺脚 Waterfall. So嶺脚 Waterfall is a fantastic place, one of my most favorite places to go and swim in the north. I jumped off it countless times. Actually, before the ban, it was a really popular place for kayaking. There was all sorts of kayaking tours that would go down the river through that area. Most of the times they didn't jump off, they just pushed the kayak over and walk around. But I guess if people wanted to jump, they could. But actually, that's unrelated to the ban, because what actually happened is there was a young girl in the area, and she accidentally slipped and she fell in and she drowned.
新北市平溪岭脚瀑布下午发生一起溺水事故，就读铭传大学22岁的越南籍女学生，中午和4名同学一起到平溪玩，在岸边泡水时不小心滑落失踪，同学紧急报案，救难队员第一时间赶到现场。
So again, and in response to this incident, which was unrelated to water activities, somebody accidentally going in the water is not actually engaged in water sports. These are accidents. It's unfortunate accidents, but regulating water sports is going to have no effect on these accidents at all. So the result of implementing the Act for Tourism Development, Article 36 in this area is not to prevent people from accidentally slipping in and drowning. What it is essentially just putting all of those tour companies out of business overnight. It's banning the place from everybody who is having a good time there. And if there are any sort of lives that are saved that way, it's going to be completely incidental, because banning one place just pushes people to other places. And the real way to sort of improve water safety is through education and resources. And it's not from banning, because this is kind of the human condition to seek out water. It's what we do, even for people who aren't swimming. Maybe they go in accidentally. That's just not something that's regulated by water sports. However, I want to pull up some of the details of this particular accident at岭脚, because the way it's portrayed in the news and the way that sort of authorities have talked about it, and you can see from the signage out front of the waterfall, it really shows like a deep misunderstanding of water safety in general. So here's some clips from the news. You can see that the water is actually at a low level. There's not really anything particularly dangerous about this area. The water is deep. It's over your head. It's not 9 meters as this news video here points out. I don't know where they get that information from. It's about maybe 3 meters deep at the deepest. Usually it's 2.5 meters deep, because when we jump off, actually we touch the bottom. If it was 9 meters deep, this is where New Taipei City would be having their dive competitions. It would be an event space, but it's not that deep. But still, it's deep enough that you can't stand on the bottom. And if you can't stand on the bottom, actually, to somebody who doesn't swim, there is no difference between, say, 2 meters deep and 2 kilometers deep. It's functionally exactly the same. So if you can't swim, you get into water that's over your head. First thing that happens is you panic, you inhale water, And then at that point, it becomes very difficult for you to save yourself if nobody is around to either assist you or like throw you a flotation device, for example. There's not much that you can do. But just because an accident happens doesn't mean that a place like this is inherently dangerous. And this kind of accident can happen anywhere. And so when the news says something like this, there's漩涡 in this area.
台面常有漩涡，由于呼叫困难，严禁戏水。
Actually, there isn't. That's false information, fake news, if you will. When at that water level, as showed in the video where the incident occurred, there are no 漩涡 there at all. There's not any meaningful current at all. There'll be a minor current pushing you away from the waterfall. That's it. I don't think deep water is dangerous. And the reason I don't think deep water is dangerous is because it's easily mitigatable. Either you know how to swim or you wear a life jacket. These are two things that completely nullify any danger posed by deep water. What is dangerous is fast water. In fact, fast water is very dangerous. It can be extremely dangerous. That's something that's not often talked about in Taiwan. But fast water is not so much a function of the place, it's a function of the conditions, like the water conditions. How much has it been raining? That's what really brings me to my point here, that is, there aren't really very many inherently dangerous places in Taiwan. It's very few. The typical water levels in most places are not that high, but what there are is sometimes actually dangerous conditions. And in Taiwan law and in Taiwan media especially, they love to talk about how dangerous this specific place is, when in reality that place is no different than any other place. And the danger there is not particularly elevated or above any other place. And so if you ban that place and you send people to other places, well, the other place isn't safer than this place was. So it really has no practical effect in any way. And I think this is done because they don't want to victim blame, maybe, but you have to victim blame, because anything that happens to you out in nature is generally your fault. Even if it's like an accident, even if it's a terrible accident, it's your responsibility to take care of yourself when you are in nature. And the state has, or should have, no liability for you when you go out in nature. Nature is wild, it doesn't care about you, and it doesn't follow your rules. That's why whenever you go out anywhere, you need to be prepared, especially prepared for unexpected things like falling. You need to know the conditions around you. You need to know what the weather forecast is, what's going to happen. You need to have a contingency plan for, if the weather doesn't follow the forecast. Like, what are you going to do? In most cases, if it floods, the thing you should do is just get somewhere high and just wait it out. You don't do anything. The conditions will change on their own. The condition, if it happens suddenly, it'll go away suddenly. If this goes for an hour and stops, it's okay. If it continues all the way through the night, that might be a problem. And of course, what I'm talking about here is personal risk. So, if you're going out by yourself or with friends, you accept all of this personal risk on yourself. If you're signing up for a tour, you're actually sort of giving the responsibility of your safety over to your tour guide. So I do think that commercial tourism, such as these kayaking tours or river tracing tours and this kind of thing, should be regulated. Guides need to follow professional and agreed upon safety standards. Otherwise, they're being negligent. But there's already laws that regulate this. What Article 36 does with these outright bans is it really mainly focuses on personal outdoor experiences, which is why it's so bad at promoting safety, and why it's really kind of a complete useless and archaic law, and it's really lost all of its function because it's just been applied in so many places all over Taiwan. There's so many places that have been banned either after one incident, which probably wasn't even related to water sports to begin with, or even repeated incidents. It doesn't matter. It's just not a good tool for regulating the water industry. There are other laws that do it better. There are local laws that can actually take care of all of these things. In my opinion, Article 36 should just be completely abandoned for other rules. And there's lots of people all around Taiwan who've been protesting this, and some of the things are so silly, like you can't put an SUP on a flat lake. What's going to happen to you in a flat lake? Like nothing. It's just complete nonsense, and it's kind of really sad and disheartening that we can't go back to some of the places that are just like, we love so much. Like the wormhole is like is such a fantastic place. It's like a crime to close it. I can't believe they did that. It makes no relevant sense. And outdoor people won a major victory with opening the mountains. Taiwan opened up its mountains. Congratulations. And I just think now's the time to open up the rivers too. Like it's time to accept water sports as part of society. Taiwan's ready for it. Taiwanese people love outdoor adventure sports. It's of course, the reason that my platform has a following at all. It's almost entirely Taiwanese people who follow this platform. And when you look at the Taiwan tourism surveys, it's, more than half the population is saying that they're engaging in water activities. So it's time to do away with all of this banning nonsense. It doesn't make sense, and it's time to focus on education, personal safety, personal responsibility. Anyway, that's my opinion. That's what I think of the subject. Let me know what you think down in the comments. And if you love water sports, subscribe to this channel. I really hope that we can make some progress on this soon.